Man, this episode hit me like a ton of bricks right in the gut. I am not going to lie. I just finished watching season 2, episode 4 of Halo entitled Reach. There's going to be a lot of spoilers in this one, so if you haven't yet watched the episode, do yourself a favor, watch it, come back to me when you're done. I got to say, man, I'm tearing up. I really am. I am shocked that so much happened so quickly. I wasn't really sure how this episode was going to play out. We talked a little bit about last week how all the different groups were separated, and my thought was if they get to their armor, it's going to be a very different episode. So I realized, at least in my head, cinematically, that it would probably make the most sense to have the Spartans not get to their armor. I didn't realize they get back to FleetCom so quickly, but they did. Along the way, people started dropping, and I think that there's a lot of different ways you could handle an invasion type episode. I think this show did it well. I'm not going to critique things that I thought could have been better or more cinematic or more violent or whatever. It was rough. It was rough to watch because you're seeing a systematic annihilation of innocent people. You could argue that, it was kind of odd the Covenant decided to just basically flatten part of a city while sending in stealth troopers to attack another part of the city and to lay a 2 or 3 prong attack on FleetCom itself. But the reality is, moment to moment, I don't think I was really logically thinking about how poorly the Covenant's battle plan was, but I was feeling the emotion. A lot of just violence and explosions and death of major characters, 2 of them in particular, that really just kind of set a very somber tone for this episode. And if you're thinking about a full-scale invasion against largely defenseless people, this is probably what it would look like. It was very violent and unorganized and ruthless. And Chief and the crew got back together a lot quicker than I thought they were going to. Corporal Perez had very quickly on, her family was lost, the family we just met. The Spartan that we met, the blind one, Lewis, him and his, I wasn't sure if it was his boyfriend or his husband, they both died very quickly. And you could see, Lewis said the line, "I'm right where I need to be." And I think that is really kind of the line that's stuck with me through, watching that and turning on my computer and getting ready to record for you guys and trying to not sit here and cry like a baby because it resonated with me because these guys, the Spartan 2s have been through so much, and to find some sort of peace or solace in finding a partner and having a life. And, when Riz says, "Hey, Lewis, he's not making it or he's not coming," Lewis already knows that he's done. He's given up essentially on life, and he wants to at least do something to help out. And he takes out the Wraith, which was awesome. I love that they're including some of the vehicles in the game, like the Wraith. Obviously, we see Scorpion tank later on. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I love that they are impactful. The fact that a single Wraith shows up in the city street is so devastating that Lewis basically, murder-suicides himself wearing a suicide vest to destroy that, to give people a chance, I think speaks volumes and about just how devastating these weapons are. Even in, we're seeing a lot of small arms fire, lots of grenade explosions, but it isn't until you start to see the heavy armor and you really see the scale of it. And I was tucked back. I wish we got to see a little bit more of it, but it took up the entire street. It was edge to edge. I don't know how they squeezed this thing through the city blocks, but they did. That really stuck out to me, and I liked that scene, and I thought that was very impactful. And while Lewis was a very, very, very small ancillary character, I felt as soon as I saw him die, as soon as I saw his husband/boyfriend die, as soon as I saw Lewis die, I was like, they're doing it. Like they're not messing around. We're going to lose major characters today. And as the show goes on, more and more fall. Jumping from the escape and kind of the reunification of Silver Team into the base, simultaneously, the B plot this week was Soren and Halsey's reunion. And this felt a little flatter than I wanted it to. I will say that I wasn't sure what Soren was going to do. I mean, he's not going to just like snap Halsey's neck, which We kind of wanted him to, but that wouldn't make sense for the show. He has a lot of pent up anger, and he just largely dismisses her. And I was very surprised by that. Pretty much his only driving focus in this entire episode, he was really oblivious to the UNSC's plight and the fact that there's people dying all over the place. He just wanted to go home. And I could take that in one of two ways. One, his character is really just, he doesn't care. He's completely retired on this former life, and his sole purpose is to get back to his family and the revenge that, he wants against his crew, although Kwan took care of it already. But the other part of it is that it was just not as well written as I would have liked. Because, he's talking with Halsey, the woman who he really blames for most of his hardships of his life, and he largely dismisses her the second he has a chance to leave. We do find out through their dialogue, though, that she actually let him go for the sake of the program. And it's kind of funny that that's like a microcosm of what Ackerson did to the UNSC by basically abandoning the, Reach facility to get destroyed. That Halsey was like, hey, listen, Soren, like, you were holding other good Spartans back like John. So we wanted you to leave. We plotted this that you would escape and think it was your idea. Like, whatever story you want to sell yourself, that's fine. That was very interesting. And I think that was a shocking moment for Soren. And while he did process that, very quickly jumps right back into just, how do I get out of here? So while that's kind of running in parallel, and we're seeing that McKee is now on Reach, she has captured Cortana, and she is kind of behind the scenes running the ship in terms of like the fleet and the attack, right? She's down on Reach, boots on ground, walking around. We get a brief snippet of her, then it cuts back to the Spartan team, where we find out their armor's been taken. So not only did Ackerson kind of cut loose and take what he considered his most valuable aids and technology and left Reach largely with a skeleton crew, but he also took all the Mjolnir armor, which that kind of answers the question of like, well, if they get the Mjolnir armor, it's going to be game over because Spartans and Mjolnir armor are the most devastating force on the planet. So we have to find a way to kind of like bring them down a peg, and that's what they did. So they don't have armor in this entire episode, and I can bet there's some fanboys out there screaming that Chief is once again without his armor, but I actually thought it really did good to level the playing field. There's a couple moments leading up to the kind of final battle at FleetCom, but even just, sporadic fighting, the guerrilla fighting leading up through the city streets, even before Lewis sacrificed himself, we see the Chief going toe-to-toe with elites and how nasty and big and violent they are, throwing him around. He's bloody, he's bruised, his lips bleeding, his arms all cut up. I mean, even for a unequipped Spartan, he is still struggling. And I think that really does show impact of like how insanely powerful the Mjolnir armor is, how it just really changes the battle in even a better way. But it was fun to watch Chief kind of struggle in a way, fighting off, hand-to-hand combat against a single elite and taking multiple, taking a couple minutes and jabbing him with the knife and shooting him and whittling him down. Like, the elites are no joke. And I love that they put so much emphasis on how violent they are and how strong they are, that just one single elite can just take out so many people. So the armor's gone. It's up to Silver Team to basically hold the line while a civilian transport can flee. During this kind of final evacuation scene, everybody gets on board, the Chief and the rest of Silver Team, minus Kai, who was, mysteriously missing this episode. They're heroically fighting, of course, and they're getting ready to leave, and the fuel is connected, and it's up to Admiral Keyes to get out and to basically disconnect the fuel line. And I knew in that moment he was going to die. And it made me really sad because he was one of the good ones. And I think his death was insanely impactful because while he did have very limited time, I'm definitely injecting a lot of my Halo lore and emotion into his character. But, he has that heartfelt moment with John where he says, hey, this is the Master Chief without armor, which I thought everybody already knew, but it was kind of like a little retcon of like, oh, you didn't know who this guy was? Like, you've seen him around for two seasons running around without his armor with the Silver Team. Like, he's a Spartan. But that was a little odd. But just even his moment with Chief and just like, hey, you were right. Like, I saw a Cobalt team. This was real. Ackerson's a scumbag. And Chief's like, you need to go and, be our advocate. I was like, oh, he's toast. It's going to happen. So he heroically dies when Perez flips on the ignition switch and basically flames out an entire deck of, Keys as well, but all of the Jackals that had, kind of a secondary attack force. Jackals looked great. The shields looked great. They seemed kind of stunned that Keys was alone. I know in some of the lore, Jackals are sometimes considered, they're really great snipers, so they're not necessarily blind, but they are kind of hard of seeing and they are bird-like. And I almost feel like if you kind of don't move, they wouldn't see you. So it was kind of a weird moment there where they're just kind of looking at each other. Keys has his one-liner where he puts his cigar in his mouth or whatever. Got a light, and then, of course, he explodes and dies. That was sad. I liked the role that his character filled. I liked that Chief had kind of a friend in uniform that was above him. I'm curious to see if Miranda Keyes will fill that role in later episodes, because they did finally mention her, but she was, as Keyes Sr. said, not on reach. So we'll have to see where Miranda ends up. And then, of course, the big death at the end, Vanek, one of the Silver Team members, arguably the coolest Spartan, the one that was probably most like the Master Chief in season 1. Very stoic, very deep voice, gritty. You get a little bit of scene of him at the beginning where he's, foreshadowing now, right? Thinking about it. Where he's feeding the birds and he's talking to them, and he's got all, Keith, and he's got all names for his birds. He had mentioned earlier that he was into nature shows and stuff. Of course, no armor. He goes up against an elite, the same elite that John is trying to fight with an energy sword. How cool is that? Chief gets blasted center mass with a plasma gun. Vanek runs over to defend. The elite grabs a needle, just an undetonated needle, and shoves it into his chest, and it detonates, killing him instantly. And the last scene of the episode, Vanek, who's now lifeless and dead, unfortunately, staring up through a hole in the window, looking at a bird. As he had talked about, he would love to be reincarnated as a bird. Probably a little soon for reincarnation, but his spirit is gone, and with, what else. And of course, Spartans never die, right? I mean, you know how that goes. They're always listed MIA, never KIA. But that was sad. It was sad to see. I wonder if the idea is to fill his role with another Spartan to kind of flesh out Silver Team, or we'll see what the evolution of that looks like. It made sense in hindsight, trying to be critical and not emotional. Emotionally, I'm a freaking train wreck. I'm not lying to you. It was very, very emotional for me. I teared up probably 6 or 7 times. Just from excitement of emotion. I mean, the Scorpion tank pulling up with Chief calling in a white phosphorus round, which was insanely cool. The Wraith, Lewis dying, Keyes dying, Vanek dying. So much death and despair. Lots of emotional moments here. Lots of good payoffs that I think will nest themselves in future episodes. But from a critical standpoint, I think this had to happen. I think if all the heroes made it off, I think if the Silver Team remained intact, if Keyes made it alive, if Corporal Perez was undamaged, if she's going to somehow evolve into some other character or to have a bigger role, Chief seeing McKee kind of save him at the last minute, you kind of have to have these threads of something to grow on, but I think you also have to have these threads of loss. And it doesn't feel impactful. It does feel impactful with tons of Marines dying, but the nameless, faceless cannon fodder kind of takes a back seat, just like in the regular Halo game. You'll be in a full hog, and then you'll get hit by a rocket, and you're the only one left, and you just keep running, and all the Marines are dead, and you're like, oh, what kind of gun did they have? Oh, he had a sniper. Let me go take it, right? You had to have that, but you had to have it mean something, and now it does. And now Riz and John and Halsey, obviously seeing her ex-husband, or at least baby daddy, dead. That's why that whole thing with Soren just felt a little off to me. But you need to have all of that emotional impact to really feel the anger now. Now it hit them hard, and it all hit them in different ways. Perez loses her family, their planet's destroyed. Soren's like what he thought was his heroic moment of escaping the UNSC as a child. That's gone. Chief obviously lost Vanek. They all lost the Admiral. The planet's in disarray. The Covenant, McKee seemingly pulled off the Covenant at the last minute. I'm not sure where that's going. Lots of questions here, but ultimately a phenomenal episode. It definitely hit me in the feels in so many different ways. But I wanted to talk about it because I do weekly reviews and I didn't want to wait. So I didn't really compose myself. I don't think I'm tearing up too bad on the camera, but this one felt very real to me in a very raw way. And if it elicits some emotion, to me, it's a success. So there you have it, a somber look at Halo Season 2, Episode 4, Reach. Next week, what will happen? I don't really typically watch the previews. I just want to be surprised. The UNSC will obviously retaliate in some capacity. We'll see what the plans were with Cortana and McKee. And this is starting to deviate pretty significantly now from the source material, which I like. So I think it's a wide open floor as to what retaliation or retribution begins next. So there you have it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back again next week with another review. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.